Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Welcome to the Mind, Money, Motion program, where we focus on worrying less about money by keeping our mind and body healthy. I'm your host, Marie Burns, a certified financial planner, speaker, author, and founder of the education business called Mind, Money, Motion. My guests will help you improve your mind by maintaining a positive, active brain, or your money by learning to use your financial tools wisely, or your motion by incorporating healthy diet and exercise habits, all so you can enjoy less worry and more life. I want to thank my co-sponsor, the Women's Enterprise Foundation, for helping to make this program possible. They are a charitable organization that supports and inspires women business owners because they believe that women are the glue for their communities, which is why the Women's Enterprise Foundation also offers grants and scholarships to assist women business owners in the Phoenix area. Today, I am excited to welcome two guests. My first guest is Marie Gonzales. She's an independent insurance agent with Guardian Insurance Group, which is a full-service commercial and personal insurance brokerage agency. She specializes in home, auto, life, and business insurance needs. As a dedicated insurance professional with 20 years of experience in the industry, she believes in educating consumers to get the most coverage for their premium dollars directed at their specific risk and needs. And my second guest is Susan Miller, the founder and president of Just Moved Ministry, which is a nonprofit global organization that offers spiritual and emotional resources for women who've moved or facing other life transitions. Just Moved Ministry resources are used by churches, neighborhoods, seminaries, military installations, and corporations, all that recognize the need to encourage the uprooted woman and her family. Susan Miller speaks throughout the United States and internationally with her unique and hope-filled message to look to God in the midst of newness and uncertainty. She's also an author of the After the Boxes Are Unpacked, a moving coach, a guest on radio and television, helping women with emotional challenges and the opportunities for spiritual growth brought on by major life changes. She lives in Scottsdale, Arizona, and is the mother of 2 and grandmother of 6. We have much to talk about today, ladies, with our theme being helping women through transitions in life in each of your specialty areas. So I'm curious, Susan, if we can start with you, why you started this Just Moved Ministry way back, it sounds like, in 1995 to begin with.
Absolutely, Marie. The interesting thing about that is I had hands-on experience with relocating, moving, being uprooted, transition. My husband was in the hospitality industry, and in that particular field, we moved 14 times because that was part of the corporate ladder, was to move every 2 to 3 years as you work your way up the ladder. So that was the catalyst for the beginning of my ministry, was just, oh my gosh, I know what women are feeling. I know what they're going through.
When you said 14, my first thought, as I bet a lot of the listeners are, probably grew up in a military family. And Marie...
I did.
And so did I, Marie.
Oh, my goodness. On top of your husband's moving? Oh, my goodness.
Moving every 2 years from overseas or locally within the U.S. was always a challenge, but you always had support, and that's what's most important.
That's what I keep hearing. You know, I think most non-military folks would think, oh, my gosh, moving that many times. And yet, when I meet folks like yourselves, they never say how negative and awful it was. It's always a positive of what they learned or how they learned to transition or the skills that you built in order to adapt to all of those things.
Absolutely. I think your coping skills really sharpen when you move a lot. And I was a military brat, an Air Force military brat. So, boy, I came out of the chute there with moving, and then married a man that was in a business that moved. So I was kind of held hostage with empty boxes and packing and unpacking.
It's always nice to transition. I mean, that's what we're here about, talking about transitioning, and it's not always a negative experience. It can be positive given the right tools and resources that you have available to you.
And Marie, in your case, so you had growing up military and then married military?
No, my family we grew up here in the Arizona area. I was originally born in Buffalo, so only moved once in my childhood, but then met my husband as a high school sweetheart and married at 18 and moved around quite frequently. And then had the biggest transition of my life as 19 years in, he passed away in a military accident. And so became a single parent at the age of 36 and raised 2 children through that transition as well.
And that's a huge transition. I am well acquainted with many military spouses that have lost their husbands while they were serving in some capacity or another.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think there's a lot of common denominators, whether it's transition of losing a spouse or being uprooted or moving, and now you're starting over with not just the logistics of, now I need to find a new doctor, I need to find a new dentist, I need to find a new place to have my hair done, I need to find a new school for the kids. What would you say, Susan, I'll ask you, and then Marie, please jump in as well, are some of the issues and struggles that women face, whatever the cause of that transition is,
right,
in that transition.
Right. And you can be uprooted. You can go through transition, not just because of a move, but a death, divorce, career change, retirement, any of those areas uproot a woman. And when you're uprooted, you lose your sense of community, you lose a sense of self, and the adjustment is hard because you leave behind everything that is familiar to face the unfamiliar. Don't you agree on that?
I do. When we were stationed in Japan back in the day, and I was pregnant with my first child, my daughter, and we did like a community awareness so that you learn the culture of where you're living and things. And I had a woman in the room, and she goes, well, this will never be my home. And my interpretation every time I moved is, this is my home for whatever space and time, and I will make it my home. And I think when you embrace your surroundings and your situation in a positive attitude, that's what carries you forward and propels you into your next life experience. We all go through different experiences, and we need the tools that help us cope and help us redevelop our community in whatever community we're currently living in.
So take us through a little bit of the mindset of that when you not only moved, but then lost your husband. So now, I work with couples and women often that lost a spouse, but there's always the finances. No matter if you're moving or lost somebody, there's always the financial piece to take on. So as the woman in the relationship financially, were you already very involved with the finances before you lost your spouse, or how did that transition for you, and how do you help women now probably in that same role with your insurance?
I do, and I truly believe that we need to put our resources together, especially when you're in a relationship. It shouldn't be one person handles everything. So I was very involved. My husband was in the Navy. So as a Navy wife, you're left alone quite often because they're deployed or on boats for 7 months. He was on a submarine with no connection. So you kind of have the tendency to take over the family core, which was maybe something that prepared me for the experience of moving on totally alone. So I was very involved, and I try to help people understand that. I get many clients that say, oh, well, I don't know what we have. My husband knows. Or the husband, I don't know. My wife takes care of it. And with my own children who are recently married, I always tell them, I go, it's a communication and it's a partnership in all aspects of your relationship, through finances, through your jobs, your growth, your building of your family. So in the insurance business, and it's most important, it's helping protect people's everyday risks today. You have a lot to plan, rather to protect yourselves from different liabilities for death through life insurance and financial planning, through businesses that you start, that you have protection so that your family doesn't hurt sometimes financially. We all have struggles. I was fortunate enough I was a daycare center director before I became involved in the insurance world. And I had a parent that came and did a presentation about life insurance and why we need it, not just with our businesses or with work or the military, but on our own by ourselves. And I listened to him and said, wow, yeah, we do need this. And thank God that I listened and purchased additional coverages at the time that we were eligible, being that eventually my husband did some dangerous things. He was a Navy diver. He rode subs. He would have been ineligible for coverage after he started some of those types of career choices. So I always tell people, always say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll put that off. Or they buy based on price, thinking they have all this coverage and they don't understand what those coverages are, rather it be home, auto liability, life insurance, financial planning. So like Marie Burns, I like to educate people, not just sell because you need this. I like you to understand, because until you understand what can happen in life and what your risks are, and everybody has different risks, you don't know what you want to use your money in the best possible aspect and spending it for the things that are important to you.
Absolutely. And you shared one statement at the beginning of your information there that talked about what type of a couple the two of you were financially. And out of necessity, even though you understood the importance of having both of you involved with financial decisions, physically he just wasn't able to be as involved maybe as your intent was. So there's 3 typical types of couples. And I'm curious, you've probably both seen both of these in your ministry and in your business. And some of this seems generational, but not always. I always think of my parents or my grandparents. With the first type of couple, that's the driver and passenger couple. One is totally in charge of everything financial, and the other is truly a passenger and usually glad to be a passenger, not need to know anything about where we're going, how we're getting there, and somebody else taking care of it. Good. So the driver and passenger couple is a very common way to gravitate in a marriage, because we all get our little departments, right? You do the yard, you do the bill paying, you do the meal preparation, you do the vehicle repairs. We all get our little departments, and finances kind of falls into that. So the driver and passenger couple, you can see how that happens. When you're trying to have both of you aware, sometimes that's the joined at the hip couple. You talk about everything financial and you're both aware and make decisions, but then one of you is still the one taking action on everything. And a lot of times I would say, Marie, in your case, it's a physical logistics thing. Somebody's gone a lot for work and somebody is at the home base and has a little more ability to take care of it. So that joined at the hip couple is the second category. The final couple is called the divide and conquer couple. They talk about everything financial, make decisions together like the joined at the hip couple, but then they split the duties. So my husband and I have evolved to this. He does all the banking and the bill paying, and I take care of the investments and the insurance after we've talked about everything. But the reason I help people understand those typical what do you fall into categories is because just like you find when you lose a spouse, which 80% of men die married, 80% of women die single. So we're very likely to be on our own at some point financially. And it's really helpful for the woman to be at least in a joined at the hip couple where she's aware, even if she wasn't doing, or the divide and conquer couple where she now only has to take on the other half. So much less traumatic when you talk about transitions financially. So I would assume even in the moving piece, there's the financial aspect of transitions that you've seen in your ministry, Susan?
Absolutely. I see that all 3 areas in women that are either married or single or divorced. And that's it. I think culturally and because of this generation, women are a lot more a part of or active in or aware of finances. We just live in an age where everything changes so quickly. And it is a huge thing. I've dealt with women who felt like I don't have a clue, and dealt with women who have got it all together and know exactly what the next plan is. And as important as that is, and it is tremendously important, my area of transition helps the woman emotionally, because until a woman is grounded emotionally, has taken care of all of those, we call them emotional luggage tags, of feelings that come with a move, she's really not going to be able to deal with all the other aspects of that. If she's angry or bitter about relocating, or if, it's a sad occasion through a death or whatever that might be, we just want to help that woman deal with her emotions and work through that aspect of it, because there's a couple of stages a woman goes through when she is uprooted and moves. It's all a part of what it takes financially, emotionally, to settle in, to kind of get your pathway on the right course, right direction.
It is also interrelated, and that's really
Totally
why my financial literacy efforts under my Mind, Money, Motion business is helping us to understand and strengthen whichever area is the biggest challenge for us at the moment. And I know, Marie, when you mentioned earlier about, I think everybody's guilty of just looking at the price tag. You talk about emotional luggage tags. In insurance, we look at just the price tag. And we don't look under the hood to see, like you mentioned, what is the coverage? And is it life insurance? Is it homeowners? Is it auto? Is there a type of insurance that you kind of see that biggest tendency to just look at the price tag and make decisions without really understanding the coverage aspect?
Well, I think as consumers as a whole, we're trained on, my rates went up, I need to find the cheapest thing out there. Well, you could end up saving $200 and having a $50,000 claim, or something happen that you're not covered now. I work with a lot of mortgage brokers. People are buying homes. They're all excited to get into the new home. The last thing they care about is what my insurance. I have insurance. That's what they say, but I go, well, what kind of insurance? How much is it covering? How much liability? If you have a pool, if you have a dog, if you have teenagers, you need to have liability protection, because the minute they make a mistake, it's going to come out of your pocket if you don't have the right insurance policy in place. And so many people are under the impression, they'll tell me, I have full coverage. Well, what does full coverage mean? There's many sets of liability limits. There's many sets of deductibles. There's, and that's my job. As an independent agent, I get to work with multiple carriers. So I'm not trying to put everybody into one box that fits all. I ask questions. They go, well, my other agent never asked me that. I'm like, well, if they didn't ask you, then how do they know? How do they know you have $50,000 of jewelry? The limit under most homeowner policies is $1,500, and people don't read the fine print. None of us want to read 78 pages of contractual language. So that's kind of my job in educating people and asking those questions and making them become more aware of their futures and what they need to protect, not just putting them into a pricing competition, because I want you to get the most for your dollar and help you understand what you have, because you'll hear a lot of negativity out there when something happens and people go, oh, those insurance companies, they don't want to cover anything. Well, maybe it was because you didn't make the choices of what you wanted to have covered or what was important to you. And that's what I try to get an understanding with my client base, is coming to that perfect picture is having everything covered, and that's not always possible, but getting the most for your money and making you understand, this is what I have. I have rental car if my car's in a shop. I have emergency road service. I have business liability if I make a mistake in my business. And there's so many more risks out here in our life that's consumed by all this technology that we need to be aware of what can happen and how maybe I can protect it than just winging it.
You said several things in there, and I think when I do financial planning, this is what reminded me. I'm going through the insurance checklist to understand their situation and what they have in place. And when I get to homeowners and ask about umbrella insurance, a rider on their homeowners, I get so many blank stares. They don't understand the liability aspect of of that or even what it's for. So do you find that very common from a liability standpoint? People just don't really understand the idea or how to protect their assets with liability coverage?
Correct. And so some of my best mentor or people that I like working with are financial advisors because you're already in the picture. You can't invest in your future if you don't protect what you have today. And all of that can go away in a heartbeat. We have such a big population in Arizona. We're not the cheapest for car insurance. But when you drive around, you see all the accidents that happen. You're looking out for pedestrians, for bicyclists. You're looking out for bigger vehicles than you, a kid jumping out in front of your car. You know, we all can have an accident in a split second, especially when we're distracted. And I totally advocate for paying attention to when you're behind the wheel. But if you hurt someone and you have minimum liability, which in Arizona was $15,000, it's going up to $25,000 in June, which still isn't enough. Even if you just send somebody in a minor fender bender in an ambulance to a hospital, we all know what our medical bills look like. That $25,000 or $15,000 is gone in a heartbeat. And what happens then is you're going to get called into a lawsuit and you have to defend yourself. When you have higher limits or an umbrella coverage, it's the insurance companies, attorneys, and their money that they're fighting to protect, not yours. So it is an important part. If you have assets, you need to have proper liability umbrella coverage to protect those.
Very good. Very good. You know, all of these decisions are, Susan, you alluded to it before, assuming that you have a clear mind able to understand and make decisions on all of these things.
Yeah, exactly. When women are uprooted, whether they are single, career, married, a mom, there is a sense of being overwhelmed. And until they can grasp their needs financially and with insurance, part of the puzzle pieces of putting their life back together is a balance of understanding what their financial or insurance needs are, as well as becoming rooted and grounded in knowing that their heart's settled, their mind is settled, and they're not so overwhelmed by all of this. And, you know, we take a woman, we have groups and classes, globally, that help a woman walk through the steps of how to let go and trust God, because we believe that the foundation in God is huge to root and ground them. It gives them that anchor of stability. And so we help a woman go through the process of letting go and trusting God, of starting over with hope and moving forward with faith. Because until you go through those 3 steps, it's like a domino effect. You can't really move forward unless you've started over, and you can't really start over unless you've let go. And identify, what am I still clinging to? You know, what do I need to cherish rather than cling to? And a lot of times it's old patterns with the exact, with financial, they may be inept totally at finance. They may have lost their husband and don't have a clue about insurance. But their being has to be stable, I think, is part of that. And it's just real important. We have found over the years that women need that stability of soundness because they've lost their identity many times. I've had corporate women say, nobody knows my name other than who's in the office. And, I've had moms with PhDs that say, gosh, here, nobody knows what I can do. I've lost my identity. So there are some key things that help a woman with that fullness of the who that she is, in order that she might then think clearly, okay, gosh, I need a financial advisor. This is out of my league, or I need insurance counsel or whatever. It all goes together, just like your mind motion.
Mm-hmm. Interrelated.
It's totally interrelated.
I think that's important in what you do, and also in ways that I met Marie Burns and you, Susan, as well, is through a lot of associations. Like when I was in the military, my military was my community. I have friends that are like sisters to me. And so when I left that community, I felt lost, like you said. Came back to Arizona, everything was different. I didn't have a tight-knit military community. I had my immediate family, which was very helpful. And then, too, in developing a new business. And so one of the things I promote is outreaching to various women's organizations throughout the Valley, such as the Women's Enterprise Foundation, National Association of Women Business Owners, NAWBO. Through my work and chairperson on the WEF board, I have met phenomenal women who have also had their own experiences. And when you get to these luncheons or these evening events and you start sharing with these women, the power within our community is what strings us together and helps us move forward, and also provides us a network of people that we know can rely on and refer women to, such as Marie and yourself. So I think that's, important during those transitions, because I happened to be in Arizona already because my husband was getting ready to get out of the Navy, establishing my kids in school and stuff, which was a godsend that we were had some roots back here that helped us establish ourselves and get through some of that, versus somebody that traumatically has to move and go through all those situations and develop those friendships and redevelop themselves within their communities. So.
And too, Marie, so many women own their own businesses and even work out of their home, and their mamas too. So they are balancing a business decisions, as well as a home management, as well as parenting. And that's a lot when you're uprooted and you've got to reestablish yourself and make sure the kids are, happy and situated, and, your business is up and rolling. And, those are a lot of hats for a woman to juggle. And I've had women, I teach a class now for women, and, I've got women in there that are divorced, that are widowed, that are single career women, and they face just a smorgasbord of decisions and, not having the right tools. And of course, we just keep them focused on, okay, you're gonna, if you want to start over, you've got to deal with those emotions. What are you feeling? What's holding you back? Our emotional luggage tags are anything that is an encumbrance to keeping you from starting over and moving forward, and to help you understand how to be best equipped. We equip a woman with tools in her toolbox to be able to let go and start over and move forward. And then the networking begins. And, that's where y'all come into a huge play in their lives.
So much there. So I want to go back and forth on a couple of things. From a timing standpoint, you talk about women business owners going through your Just Moving ministry, and the Women's Enterprise Foundation helps women business owners. And specifically, we have granting and scholarship opportunities through that organization. So Marie, if you can share a little bit with us on that, and this is maybe a good time for the grant deadline to be shared.
Exactly. I've served as the chairperson of the Grant and Scholarship Committee for Women's Enterprise Foundation for the past 2.5 years. And we offer grants twice a year in February and in August. So right now we're in our grant push. We offer grants to women business owners of up to $2,500 in the greater Phoenix area. You must be 50% or more women owned and have been in business for 2 years. Our applications are accessible, the Women's Enterprise Foundation Facebook page and our LinkedIn page under Women's Enterprise Foundation. And it's a simple application, and you need to fill that out, as well as upload a P&L statement and a mission statement. So,
and those are due when again? I'm sorry.
The last day of February. So we have 29 days this year. So we get an extra day.
Excellent.
And we offer studies videos, resources for women who have been uprooted on our website, available on our website. We offer books and the teaching materials as well as the videos that help a woman through that process of letting go and starting over and moving forward. And that's available all over the world and in a lot of studies in military installations with corporate expats internationally, as well as in neighborhoods. Anywhere there are new women, they can gather together either in home or church or, their business and go through this study, which is just another phase, another aspect of helping them get settled.
So you started to talk about some of the tools in the toolbox. And I think the 3 phases or the 3-step process that you take a woman through bears repeating. So if you can go through those with a little bit of definition to help us have that in mind, then I'd like to segue into more detail around the tools in the toolbox. I know you have like a weekly email tips as well.
Absolutely.
So I want to be sure we're sharing those resources.
Well, the first stage of settling and putting down roots is letting go and trusting God. There are so many things when a woman is uprooted that are beyond her control. Circumstances can be beyond her control. A move or being uprooted can be wanted or unwanted, planned or unplanned. It's just, it happens so many times when, you have no clue that it's going to happen, or there are circumstances that allow it to happen. So the first thing, letting go to a deeper level, is really dealing with the feelings and emotions and what a woman sees, we say, in a rearview mirror. In other words, as you leave behind a place, what are you seeing? What are you clinging to that might be a detriment to you beginning to start over? So, we talk about what you see in your rearview mirror. We just kind of outline all those emotions and things like a house or a job or a church or a neighborhood, and name it and claim it. Hey, this is what, I'll never have the same house again. I'll never have the same work employees again. But these are the things you need to identify and articulate in order to understand, 1, you're not weird or crazy, you're normal. And 2, are you clinging to that where you are stuck? And you can't be stuck and let go at the same time. So the beauty out of that is by saying, okay, I am so angry at my husband for moving me here. I had this great career going, or for saying, I don't have a clue about my finances. I'm newly divorced. And so those are feelings that she has that we deal with and help her understand that she can cherish the good things left behind, but cling to what is. Honey, you're starting over. This is a new beginning. You've got to look forward and not back. And then when we take a woman through starting over, we help her understand how being uprooted and moving affects her family, her parenting, her self-image, how she has to deal with making new friends. Losing friendships is one of the top things that a woman feels, and that loss of self and sense of community, and deal with, the issues that rise in a marriage because of being uprooted. So, and the loneliness is huge, and self-esteem. And so those are the things that we talk about, that we help a woman through as she starts over. And then to move forward, we like for her to know and understand how she can live above her circumstances, regardless of what they are, and how she can live with peace, and how she can live with a newfound joy and begin to move forward with a fresh start and a new beginning. So that's kind of a brushstroke of what we take a woman through.
And so all of that is so tied to the mind and the emotional and certainly the spiritual aspect of that. physiologically, I feel like a broken record. I think in almost every discussion that I have, I'm reminding us all about the normal aspect of how the brain works and how emotions play such a crucial role in that. We have to be aware of that, because when you're moving with the Just Move Ministry and you have a new place and you're looking at, now I need homeowners insurance or renter's insurance as a very first having to make a financial decision process, you have to be sure you are that. I oversimplify this, but physiologically, the brain has an emotional side and a logical side, and there's basically a door in between. And when you are overwhelmed with emotion, that door slams between, and you cannot possibly function. The logical side is literally just not able to get through the door and engage the brain.
So well said, Marie.
I need these
I'm
pictures
a word
to help me remember.
Person.
Yes.
That's why I use luggage tags and all, but that is so well articulated.
So then what happens then is they come to see you, Marie, because now we have a new home and they need homeowners insurance, and not all homeowners policies are created equal. And they're not even able to listen to what you're saying unless that door is cracked open. So breathing, meditating, praying, some of these other things that help them emotionally crack the door open, basically, to let the logical side engage. That's when they should go talk to Marie.
Totally.
But talk to us about it.
No, I say if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else. So, I mean, it's pretty simple. Is you got to reconnect and go, I am important. I can do this. I couldn't be there for my children if I didn't take care of me.
Right.
I couldn't make those financial decisions if I didn't take care of me first. So everyone used to be called, you're being selfish. Well, it's not, because you need to be selfish and take care of you spiritually, emotionally, and financially.
Absolutely.
In order to move forward and take care of the responsibilities that life throws at us.
You need to put your own oxygen mask on first, then on your family.
Right. We have no problem accepting that. But then if mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy or healthy, we don't want to believe that. That sounds selfish.
Right. Yeah.
So when they come to you, Marie, and are talking about homeowners, what do you like to be sure you're helping them understand about they're not all created equal?
Well, again, my background too, I always wanted to go into psychology. So lucky for me that emotionally I have those attachments in trying to truly helping people, not just make a sale. So again, a lot of people get taken aback because they're like, well, why are you asking me all these questions? Well, I'm kind of getting to know you and build relationships. If you don't build relationships, no matter what type of business you're in, your clients want to know that you care, that they're the priority, that you're taking care of them. So I think all of this kind of interreacts into what you do, Susan, and what you do, Marie, as well. So it's getting them into that, and some people, I'm not going to get through to them if they're running from one appointment to another. Yeah, great, that's fine. No, when do you have time for about a 20-minute conversation so we can discuss what you truly need and what you want out of your policies? So helping people and educating them, or just doing a coffee with friends and just talking, brings those types of conversations to surface. And then somebody might approach me and go, hey, Marie, I worked with a woman who had lost her husband from cancer, and sharing my story helped her build that relationship, of course. And then she had no clue what her husband did. The agent that had her policies didn't reach out, because if someone in my book would have a passage of a husband or a divorce, there's questions, there's things you need to separate. So it is important. So I don't necessarily go into just what is in your home. It's what is in your life, and how can I help you sort through all of those situations and get the best protection for your policy. And everyone has different needs, right? Where we live, where we work, what we do, how many, like I said, children do we have, things in the household, all of that matters in developing a policy that's going to protect all of the risks that you have in your life.
Right. And insurance, well, like in any financial, there's so much lingo and definition of terms that people think they know, or they don't know what they don't know. I'm actually in my second career, 20 years as a certified financial planner and advisor. But before that, I was a registered dietitian. I helped people balance their diet and exercise, which has actually been a blessing coming into the financial industry because I detest lingo. I detest feeling like somebody's talking over my head. And so when I think of, homeowners, for example, and you have to understand the terms of, am I looking for replacement value if my home burns down, or what are the other options, and what does that mean? Why is the premium more or less, and what does that really mean from a coverage standpoint? So those types of homeowner coverage discussions, I'm sure, are where you're finding a lot of misunderstanding or misinformation too.
Right. There's different types of homeowner policies. There's, like you said, actual cash value. There's replacement costs. There's named peril policies. There's policies that include a lot of coverages. Some people may not need it. My one of the agents I worked for through my career, he always used to say insurance is like gambling. Some of us are heavy duty gamblers. We'll put a lot down on the table and we'll take high risk. There's some of us that, no, I want to protect as much as I can for whatever it costs, because I don't want to have to worry if something like that happens. Am I protected? So it's getting to know people's personalities and getting to know them to understand where they might fit in. And companies too, there's a wide variety of companies out there that you can use. And believe it or not, they all have a sweet spot of what they're looking for to have as a consumer. So if you have an independent agent that can look at different options, that helps you get the best coverage for your premium dollars, as well as making sure that you have the things covered. You don't want to come home to a theft loss. And, I have a lot of people who have a lot of firearms, and those too, along with jewelry, are limited. Mm-hmm. So I had a guy with a $50,000 worth of firearms, and guess what got stolen? And he had a $2,500 limit. So he was out of pocket for $30,000 plus when he could have insured those for maybe $200 a year. So there's different circumstances for everyone. And if you don't want to read the policy, then you need an agent that you can look to say, hey, help me understand this. I want to know more. And that's why I promote not shopping just for price.
Exactly. And the fact that you can ask all of those questions, not because you're nosy, because you're trying to understand their situation and then their values and goals. So somebody that can shop and translate, I think that's really what most people want, whether they identify that or not. I know when we first moved here from Wisconsin, the whole concept of homeowners, here we don't have to worry about floods and tornadoes and tsunamis and earthquakes and, a lot of the natural things that can happen. But then, like you're talking about, then there's these other aspects of the policy that you have some decisions to make. So it's great that you're listening and asking all the questions to help them understand what their choices are before they make a decision, not just about the price tag.
Exactly.
And just as the two of you have resources and ways to help people in your arena, we have an enormous amount of resources that allow a woman who maybe is not near a study or maybe can't get our materials. By going on our website, she can join our Just Move community, and that's a private community of women who are uprooted by a move, and that's where they support one another, talk to one another, and that's all private. And that is, because we deal with the relational aspect of being uprooted, that is such a help to her. We have our weekly words of encouragement, which could be a short quote or a scripture or a word of encouragement that drops in their inbox once a week. Just nothing, all this is free, and it's nothing that they need to do in return. They just go on our website, sign up for the Just Move community, sign up for weekly words of encouragement, or sign up for our Bloom publication that comes in their mailbox 3 times a year. And that broadens our outreach from just women who are uprooted by a move to women who have been uprooted through, as I said, divorce or death or retirement or being single in some aspect. It covers a large area of need for a woman in helping her cope and encourage her. So besides books and journals, and we have what we call a scripture flip, which is just daily encouragement of scripture.
What about, there's a program called After the Boxes?
Yes, that's our study. It's called After the Boxes Are Unpacked, based on the book that I wrote, After the Boxes Are Unpacked, because in our ministry, talk about simplifying and helping a woman understand your terminology. The name of our ministry just moved. Hey, you get that quickly. Then our studies are called After the Boxes Are Unpacked. Well, you sure get that. That's part of being a new mover. So we try to keep our terminology such that a woman immediately identifies with that need, just as you do in your areas of business.
When I looked at that resource, After the Boxes Are Unpacked, on your website, my first thought was, this is for women in transition. I didn't even connect the moving aspect, because if you lost a spouse, if through death or divorce, or you move physically,
that's right,
actual boxes that are moved in that process for one reason or another. So it looked like the content of what was really being offered is so applicable to transition, not just moving.
It really is. The catalyst, the beginning of the ministry, and the book was written around the catalyst of moving, but the biblical principles and the practical principles and application apply to women in any transition, in any state of being uprooted. And, because with being uprooted through any area of life comes change. With change comes loss, and with loss comes grieving. And so, to help a woman identify with that and that she is normal is part of getting both feet solid on the ground to be able to move forward.
And when people are moving, they're not just dealing with physically moving, and maybe they have family, maybe they don't, maybe they have a business. And I know, Marie, you work with business owners in addition to just individuals. And so when we think about business owners, self-employed, what kinds of insurance decisions do they need to be making, whether they're moving or not, but just to be thinking about protecting and liability?
It should be in the forefront of when you're developing your business plan of the expenses that it's going to take to move forward in your business. I think a lot of people have great ideas, they implement them, and they're a year or two into the business, and all of a sudden, if you want to participate in a speaking engagement or you want to participate in a craft fair to sell your wares, you need a liability policy. Well, I have liability. I have homeowners insurance. I'm operating out of my home. Well, big no-no right there. Under your personal homeowners insurance, it excludes business liability and business inventory. I have a lot of contractors that store a lot of their tools in their personal homes thinking, well, I use these for personal use. But if there was a fire or a theft and they got stolen and the insurance company found out they were being used to produce income for a home-based business, they're already excluded, or there's a limit of very little. So it's important that you ask your agent. That's why people a lot of times too what is the old saying? I'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission. Well, if you don't ask questions of, do I need additional coverages? Do I need to cover myself for liability outside of my home or in my home business? You're going to be holding the bag of, I don't have coverage and now I have a lawsuit, or I have something that's not covered. So when you're beginning your business plan, talk to an agent, talk to see what those expenses look like. I have people with great ideas to find out that those ideas are going to cost $10,000 a year to insure properly. So a lot of people will go without. They'll roll, again, they're a gambler. They're going to roll the dice until something happens. It happens. Great. But if you're a worry person like I am, I want to cover what I need to do in order to be successful, because I wouldn't want to build a business and earn an income and have it all disappear immediately because I didn't have some coverage that maybe even just a little bit in as cost-wise to insure versus going without. So it's always important to share all of these ideas with whoever you're working with. And if they don't want to hear you, or they go, oh, don't worry about it, that's probably not the person to have in your court.
True, right? Then that becomes a liability to you because they're not listening.
Correct.
To what you're advising. As you were talking about risk and liability in general, I think in society we're getting more and more technology related to everything we do, no matter what business or even personally where we are with our families in life. So from an insurance standpoint, if you can share with us a little bit about this whole idea of cyber liability and risks that personally or professionally people have with that whole digital aspect of life these days, that is still kind of mind-boggling to me.
It is, and it's something that has recently developed, and in the past 5 years now, you can purchase cyber liability not only for your personal home under your personal home policy, but specifically for your business. And a lot of people again go, "Oh, I'm not going to get hacked, or I'm not going to get my identity stolen, or I'm not going to." And you don't realize how quickly, even you hear in the news every day, large corporations. I think it was Experian, who holds all of our credit information, got hacked. So to say it's not going to happen to me is probably not being honest with yourself. And especially in businesses. So before we were out speaking, now we're on the internet speaking and talking and using people's photos or using people's articles. So it's the old copyright adage and things like that. So there's a lot of different risks when you're developing your business as an online presence of what you say, what you talk about, what you speak about. Can somebody sue me? Do I have liability there? And then if you're keeping customers' personal information at any, I think it's 2 pieces of information that is considered personal. So a date of birth and a driver's license number. You don't even have to have the Social Security for it to be a cyber risk to those people within. How do you store that on your computers? How safe? What kind of backups do you have? What kind of security and antiviruses do you carry? So yes, you can purchase additional coverage for those situations so that if someone did sue you for compromising their data, that you have coverage for that as well.
So many things to think about. I know that whole overwhelm, right, can play into this no matter what transition we're going through. I know, Susan, when you were sharing some of the tools in the toolbox, so to speak, a lot of those are intended for the woman. And yet there's a family behind the woman that has to go through all of these transitions, whether they're moving or transitioning otherwise. How do you find a move specifically in your ministry affects the family?
Well, it affects a marriage tremendously if you and your spouse are not on the same page, and whether you're in agreement with the move or not, it can affect the marriage. I've always said a lot of times a move is the tip of the iceberg in a marriage issue, because the issue may have been there long before the move, but the move is what just, broke the iceberg. So I think that, communicating with your spouse and helping, having a date night or taking time together to just have that time together. Because so many times in a marriage where both are working or one is working, you get so focused on that because you're starting a business or you're stepping into something that you need to just focus on that, and that's where all your time goes. So it affects the whole family. That goes for men or women. And so it's key to keep those marriage ties strong and to recognize that it does have an effect on your marriage. The other thing with children is I think we get so busy sometimes that we forget that our kids are going through the same emotions we are, but they don't have the coping skills to deal with them as an adult. And I think spending time listening, asking questions that reveal how they're feeling, not just questions that they can say yes or no to as an answer. But I think taking that time to listen to them, to spend time with them, to see what their needs are and what their emotions are huge. The hardest age for moving with children, with kids, are teenagers. That is huge.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many parents say, my teenager's rebelling. Well, yes, because this is a time of them trying to pull away and be independent, and then all of a sudden they're pulled back under the family umbrella with a move. And so it's very hard. They leave behind boyfriends, girlfriends, all their activities. So just to be aware and sensitive that the move is not all about you as a woman, but it does affect your family. And I even have women who have lived in the valley 2, 3, 4, 5 years that will join my study and say, I can't get it together yet. I don't have any friends. I just don't feel settled in. So it can affect a woman, her needs for what we offer can be not just because you just pulled into town, but because you've never felt that settling in and that emotional stability of transition.
I think the key word today is communication.
Yeah, it really is.
Because I think the more, and our society gets used to texting and emailing and using social media outlets to voice our opinions to a broad range, we were missing the local communication of talking to one-on-one, talking within our families, talking to our advocates, whether it be a financial advisor, your insurance agent, going through those motions and asking for advice and communicating your wants and needs, rather that be in a marriage or in a business environment. Because I think that's what's missing sometimes in today's world is just open communication and being able to sit around and talk much like we have today.
Right,
so
exactly.
True. And we have lost that in this culture with high tech. Everything is, not eye to eye or face to face.
Right. Well, I always like to end our discussions with kind of some key takeaways that I hope the listeners will take with them. We're trying to share tips and information for awareness, but also maybe for action that people can take after hearing the discussion. So I always take notes while we're visiting and share my 3 key takeaways from each of you, and then we'll throw that back to you to say, what would you add or subtract, or what did I miss? One more thing that you want to be sure listeners are taking away from our discussion today, as well as, and where should they go for additional information, a little bit more information about your website or how to contact you. So, Susan, I'll start with you. One of the key things that I think we've been talking about, and especially with your Just Moved ministry, is talking about transitioning and being uprooted, where suddenly, like you said, you lose the sense of community and it's all unfamiliar. So if we identify the key message of there are these emotional luggage tags, I love that. That's a visual word for me. Emotional luggage tags in life that can really deter us from moving forward. Just recognizing that, I think, is part of the second message, is the 3 steps, right? So letting go and trusting God, because, it's not about, you do identify in the rearview mirror and focus on what you're leaving behind, but then moving forward. So letting go, step 1, starting over, step 2, learning to look at this like a new beginning, and step 3, moving forward, how to live with peace. And then third, the tools in the toolbox. I think we all use that in whatever our profession is, because once we ask a bunch of questions, there are a lot of different resources we can suggest or use to help folks moving forward. So checking out your website from a biblical and practical perspective for really any transition, not just moving. I think you have studies, books, the tips email, private community on the site, weekly words of encouragement, after the boxes are unpacked study, etc. So lots of things to check into at justmove.org, I would assume, is maybe the best.
Justmove.org will take you right there. And, it's the name of our ministry as well as our website. So it is a great venue of resource, regardless of your transition.
I agree. So it's not just for those moving.
Exactly.
It's transitioning. Absolutely. Thank you. And Marie, some key things here. I think you hit it on the nose, where the common thread is communicate. Because, your point about, you can't just consider the price tag of the insurance. You have to understand the coverage is huge. So discussing and communicating with your insurance professional to let them ask questions and ask questions yourself, I think was a key message to me. Because of your background, similar to some of the transitions Susan talked about, the embracing wherever you are currently as your home, I think is a great piece of advice to help you transition moving forward, no matter where you live. Where I live now is my home, and embrace that to help you transition forward. And then the third area is really more about the Women's Enterprise Foundation, the grants where you grant up to $2,500, the end of February deadline for women who've been in business for a couple of years. And they can find you on LinkedIn, Facebook, the Women's Enterprise Foundation website. Lots of opportunities there for women who are in business. And your best website to reach you
is Marie Gonzales, insureme.com. Or you can shoot me an email at marie@guardianinsgroup.com.
Awesome. Well, I thank you both for being with me today and sharing lots of great information that, if we aren't in transition now, we were or we will be. That's just life. So lots of good things that hopefully our listeners were able to identify with today and hopefully act on tomorrow.
And thank you, Marie.
Always my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, listeners, for listening to this episode of Mind, Money, Motion, where we share how to worry less about money by taking care of our mind and body. Next month, our guests will be educating and challenging us to incorporate healthier habits around the subject of nutrition and exercise. So we hope you join us then for some great tips related to decisions we make every day that significantly impact our mind and body. You can find this podcast, past episodes, and related tools and resources at mindmoneymotion.com or find us on Facebook. Please join us next time for less worry and more life. I'm Marie Burns.